This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are the things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states and situations.
In case you haven't heard, it's officially in Abercrombie summer. The A&F Vacation Shop has everything on your packing mood board. I desperately need their new one piece, the A&F Marina. It's strapless, so flattering, and paired with denim shorts will be my go-to beach outfit this summer. Finally, your suitcase isn't complete without finding that dress. You know, the one for the photo shoot. Abercrombie's boho dresses have that perfect beachy, romantic look. Make it an Abercrombie summer. Shop their newest arrivals in-store, online, and in the app.
What's the quirkiest thing someone has brought in that they thought you could repair?
Oh my goodness. We get all kinds of stuff. We've had a pitching machine. We've had a vintage pinball machine. We had a lanternfish mask. The light stopped working and we repaired it. So we get all kinds of stuff.
Welcome to How To. I'm Courtney Martin. I have a confession. It's something I feel a lot of shame about, you guys, but also feel sort of stuck around. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I live in a house where no small amount of Amazon packages are dropped on the doorstep on the regular. All right, so I've said it. I'm just going to look at my order history here and give you a little sense of what we have ordered recently. Okay, we have those grill prep trays for Father's Day that we got for John. I think one of them has already melted in some freak accident. Printer ink, a wireless doorbell, and whoopee cushions. Yeah, my youngest is a prankster. And yes, pranks necessitate Prime 2-day delivery, at least when you're 8 years old. So this house of 5 desirous humans is consuming way too much new stuff. Which is why today I am summoning an expert who can help me do right by myself, my family, and the rest of the world.
My name is Phoebe Schenker, and I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called Reuse Alliance. And we are working to expand the reuse economy by promoting resale, repair, repurpose, and refill.
All the re's.
All the re's.
One of these re's is something called the Repair Fair, a recurring event where people can get broken stuff fixed by volunteers.
We do a lot of small appliances, lamps, clothing, and bicycles. We say if you can carry it in, we'll try to fix it.
That almost sounds like a challenge the way you guys word it. I'm like, what is the biggest thing I could carry?
Somebody brought a pellet stove once. That was very large and heavy.
Shout out to that person. She's like, I'm going to take full advantage of this.
Yeah, that's good for our numbers because we always track the number of pounds diverted from the landfill. So.
Oh, good high poundage right there.
Yes. Every KitchenAid mixer, I'm like, yes, that's more weight.
And so the repair fairs, are they all over the country or just in the Bay Area for now?
We just run them in the North Bay, but there are versions of it all over the world, actually, where volunteers who have those skills get together and people stay with their object while it's being repaired, and they can be as involved as they feel comfortable or want to be. They can just watch or they can participate. And it does a lot to demystify repair, you know? A lot of handy people just are not afraid to get in there and try to figure it out.
That's so cool. Has there been anything that people brought that you guys couldn't repair that you were just like, oh no, not one of these?
There are always things we can't repair. The newer things are, the less likely they are to be repaired. Coffee makers, toasters, things like that. They're made primarily out of plastic. Once the plastic breaks or deforms, it's just not, you can't fix it. People learn a lot about how to shop for things that can be repairable in the future. So one of the best arguments for buying vintage is things used to be made out of metal and much easier to repair.
Yeah. So and is this also not just about the materials, but the planned obsolescence that a lot of current companies, their whole strategy is that it breaks and you depend on buying another one, right?
That can be both an intentional strategy and just the result of making things cheaper and cheaper. You know, trying to bring prices down means there's no incentive in a lot of cases to build things to last.
What Phoebe does is magic to me. I desperately want to have this ability to fix almost anything. But the truth is, it's not magic. It's skills, right? That were passed down through generations.
I definitely grew up in a house where both my parents were very handy. We used to love to go thrifting. There was a vintage shop in Sacramento called Cheap Thrills. Such a 90s name.
Such a good store name. Love it.
You know, that was a treat to go there. My mother taught me how to sew. The first thing that I sewed completely was a dress. And it took me so long to make that I was totally sick of looking at it by the end. And I don't think I ever wore it.
Really? That's so sad. How old were you? Do you remember?
I was probably maybe 10 or 11, something like that.
Wow.
One of the other things I made when I was younger was a skirt made out of ties, which I wore all the time. And which took a lot less time because the ties were already, they just needed to be sewed together. And I think one of the things that I love about mending is it's a lot freer. It's a lot faster. You can repurpose things a lot more quickly than sewing something up from scratch. Takes a lot more patience and precision.
Okay, you're giving me real Pretty in Pink vibes in my mind of Molly Ringwald making her... Was it prom dress? Oh my God, it was so good. And also so like that movie and this thing of getting to make your own clothes plays with gender, which is why I love using the ties as a skirt. There's so much more creativity in reuse than, just sort of swallowing whole what you can get at a big box store.
Yeah, definitely. I think anybody who has suffered from blank canvas, paralysis, that's really different with reuse. You're starting with existing materials and they have existing stories and there's stuff to respond to when you're repurposing that I think can lead to greater creativity. There's also problems to be solved. So it's much trickier in some ways to repurpose something, but you get things with more personality and more creativity because you have a more challenging problem to solve.
On today's show, how to get better at reusing your stuff. We know that overconsumption is a systemic issue fueled by market incentives, and while personal action isn't going to fix the problem, if we reorient our habits around reuse, repair, and sustainability, we can start changing the tide. But the key is to make the switch easy and maybe even a little fun. After the break, we'll get a screwdriver, open this can of worms up, and take a look. Today's episode is sponsored by NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast. Making financial decisions shouldn't feel like trying to pick a place to eat with friends. Too many choices, and everyone has an opinion on what's worth it. One person says, invest in crypto. Another says, go all in on real estate. Meanwhile, you're just trying to figure out if your credit card's annual fee will ever pay off. That's where the nerds come in. NerdWallet's finance journalists do the research so you don't have to, breaking down the fine print, cutting through misinformation, and giving you real, fact-based insights, so you can make smart financial moves without the group chat chaos. NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast can help you get smarter about using home equity without over-leveraging yourself, and when refinancing actually saves you money and when it doesn't. Want to know if dividend stocks or growth stocks make more sense for you? Listen to the nerds. They also help decipher the real difference between ETFs and mutual funds without the jargon. Make your next financial move with confidence. Follow NerdWallet's Smart Money Podcast on your favorite podcast app. And stay tuned until the end of the episode to hear the Smart Money trailer.
If you've listened to the How To podcast for a while, then you know how important acceptance is when it comes to personal growth. And do you know who else is big on acceptance? Discover. You see, Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. That's a whole lot of places and a whole lot of acceptance, which is great for Discover, but even better for you. Based on the 2024 Nielsen report, learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
We're back, and it's time to meet our second guest.
My name is Sue Jean. Courtney and I work together at the Holding Co., a brilliant organization that does a lot of work in care and caregiving. And outside of that, I try to surf as much as possible. Enthusiast of reusing things, recycling, re-upping, re-everything as well. So Phoebe, feels really nice to have this conversation with you and feel very lucky to be here.
I wanted Sujin to join this conversation because I think she's like a lot of you. She's been experimenting with reuse, but wants to learn more. She also has an infectious enthusiasm for learning new skills.
I have picked up a lot of sewing over the last year, particularly with my friend Olivia, and we sew a lot together and mend things together and constantly trying to re-up our outfits and our wardrobes by making things more interesting by sewing. And in general, I think the concept of repairing is something that has a larger umbrella of intimidation. But if you start to repair anything, then you get in the mentality of, I wonder if I can repair that other thing, or, oh, this happened. Can I do something about it? So it's been fun to think about how I can intervene and not have to throw things out. And I don't know, I think there is that Japanese art that sometimes people talk about, like, I don't remember if it's called like kitsune or something, but when you're bringing broken things back together and like using the gold plating to pull it together so it's beautiful in a different way. So it's not always going to look gold and beautiful in that way, but just there's a story behind every repair, especially if it's something that's more noticeable as you repair it. So
oh my gosh, listeners can't see, but Phoebe is just quietly bursting with nods and smiles for this beautiful articulation of Sujin's. Do you want to add to that, Phoebe?
That was perfectly said. I think, a lot of what we're trying to do at Reuse Alliance is just get people to stop before you buy something new. Can you just stop and think, is there another way to get this? Can I fix it? Can I borrow it? Can I rent it? Can I get it secondhand? I think the default in our culture is just, oh, it's broken, throw it out, get a new one. We have systems that have made that as simple and frictionless as possible. But we have a lot of power to say, wait a second, hold up.
It's amazing the domino effect repair can have, right? Once you've repaired one thing, you feel more capable, and then you start to get more curious, and suddenly you're looking at the world a little differently. This is also where we can probably take a note from children about creativity and their lack of preciousness. Literally, the other day, Maya took an old jumpsuit of Stella's and turned it into a shirt and jacket. It's totally unfinished, but my kids don't care. So often, we battle with perfectionism, and sometimes we need to remember that things can just be a little wonky. It's character. But it's one thing to upcycle an old piece of clothing and find a fresh new use for it. Fixing appliances or other complex equipment is a whole different story.
It can sometimes be a little intimidating just to know, am I doing this right? Is it structurally sound? In college, was given a rusty bike that was on its way out by a friend, and I brought it to an organization called RIBS, or Recycle Ithaca's Bicycles, in Ithaca, New York, and brought it in and saw a lot of joy in the repairing process, but was also scared because I didn't even know what to ask the person that was working there and was there to help me. I felt a little paralyzed and had to have him walk me through how to even go about thinking about repairing something like this. So I'd say just thinking about how long is that thing that you need maybe gone for if you send it off somewhere versus doing it yourself might either save time or add time. And there also just always is am I doing this right? And looking at YouTube, and one video might say one thing and another might have conflicting information or just a different way of doing things. It makes you question if the process that you're taking is one that will lead to something that is shiny and repaired down the line, or if it's going to be a bit more of an undertaking.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought up YouTube, because that's like such a double-edged sword, right, Phoebe? It's like on the one hand, it's so cool that YouTube exists and we can look up how to repair things, but on the negative side, it doesn't create relationship, like you were saying, that is possible within repair. And it may just lead to more frustration for some people who like think they're going to watch a YouTube video and then immediately know how to fix something. And then they're just like alone and frustrated instead of like with others.
There's no replacement for having a human sit with you and show you how to do something. I think a lot of our fixers will use YouTube, though, to figure out what the common problems are. So like you said, it works both ways. Part of what Reuse Alliance does is try to pull together, trusted resources. So there are better places and less reliable places to look for that kind of content. But also, I think what it can do is show you that it's possible, and then you can seek out the help that you maybe need to make it happen. I really relate to the intimidation factor. When you're trying to do something for the first time, especially something like a bicycle that you're going to trust your life to, you want to make sure you're going to be able to fix it in a way that is safe and secure. So I definitely think not all fixing should be DIY by yourself with your computer.
You mentioned more reliable places. What are the more reliable places?
Websites like iFixIt or WikiHow, Family Handyman, that have how-to videos, and specifically around computer electronics. iFixIt has the manuals and the breakdowns and even the tools to be able to repair things, and it's really reliable. It's been vetted. They're doing it themselves. But there are also very skilled menders who have YouTube videos. There are different projects for all kinds of things.
Here's our next piece of advice. YouTube videos and online tutorials are a wealth of information. They can teach you what's possible and give you ideas for troubleshooting. But community really does give you peace of mind. If someone wants to tiptoe into this, but has trouble seeing a project through and/or is really busy, are there any kinds of repair or reuse that are good starter projects?
What we really need is an economy of repair. Reuse creates 30 times more local jobs than landfilling the same amount of material. And so it's a great potential local economic driver. And so I always say if you're able, the easiest thing to do is if you have a mending, clothing, most local dry cleaners are able to do mending in addition to alterations. So a really easy place to start is paying somebody else to do your repair work for you. Obviously, as Sujin said, that you have to be a certain level of privilege to be able to do that. But if you can support the reuse economy, then that's, we need that sector to grow a lot. If you do want to take on your own project, there are a lot of fairly simple repairs. I'm always surprised. A lot of fans and vacuums and sewing machines, it's actually just about cleaning. So, you have to take it apart, clean out all the dust, and put it back together. And that can be really straightforward, especially with a, old metal fan or something like that.
Cleaning. So obvious. It makes me think of like rebooting the computer. You know how like whenever it's not working, you're just like, just start it over, Mom. And now I'm just thinking like, just clean some shit. Okay. That would be like a good starter form of reuse and repair, right?
Well, and check the batteries and check the outlet. So the number of times that we have people come in and they say, this thing stopped working, and it turns out that it was actually the outlet at their house, the circuit breaker or the surge protector that was flipped off or something like that. So a lot of times it's a really simple repair.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so batteries, outlet, anything else you see people make mistakes about a lot with repair and reuse?
Light bulbs.
Say more.
People come in with a lamp, and actually, some vintage lamps can't accept a compact fluorescent light bulb, so they require an incandescent. Wow. Those are some really simple ones.
And what about other misconceptions about what can be repaired? Like, are there certain things you think people assume can't be repaired that actually can be quite easily?
That's a good question. I think more often it's the other way around, where, people really want things to be repairable that aren't. Avoiding plastic, that is the single best thing you can do to ensure that your things are repairable. Most wood and metal can be repaired. And that can include really, really complicated things, lots of furniture and
that's a great rule
appliances
of thumb.
And tools. Yeah.
There's one more thing you should be aware of. It's called wish donating. That is where you feel guilty about letting something go, so you donate it to a resale shop or try to give it away, knowing full well that it's reached the end of its life.
People get rid of things for all kinds of different reasons, right? We've all been gifted things that we never use and they're in pristine shape, or, things don't fit, or you thought you wanted something and turns out it doesn't look good with your eyes, or whatever the reason is. That stuff definitely should be donated. I think things that are worn out, you can either get them repaired and then donate them. That's actually a lot of people bring things to the repair fairs. They've already replaced it because, like you said, they didn't want to go 3 weeks without their toaster, but now they want to get it fixed so that they can post it on FreeCycle or Craigslist and give it away.
God bless those people. Wow.
Yeah. Yes.
That is really intentional.
It's really great. And then I think, some things are valuable as material. So, if clothing is 100% cotton, then it can be downcycled into rags after it's been, had its useful life as an item of clothing.
Phoebe, I have a question, actually.
Yeah.
You bringing this up. I have socks that I am like, this is not something that would be donated normally. So I've just been like hoarding all these socks that I don't wear anymore, and have looked online everywhere for where to bring socks that people, if you wanted to wear them and you were in desperate need of socks, I'm sure they'd be fine. They're not like torn or anything, but where do you bring things like that?
Like our local thrift store here, that's where I buy my socks. And, people donate them there. And when if they're in good shape and they still have a lot of life left in them, then they will resell them.
Stella went through a serious sock puppet phase. I'm thinking art educators might want all those socks, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We just got to find them, Sujin.
Help.
Yeah, that's where the lack of infrastructure for reuse comes up, is there are people who could make good use of those, and connecting the dots is challenging. With warm things like socks and hats and stuff, a lot of homeless service providers will collect those materials and distribute them to the homeless in the winter. So, if they're warm items, that can be an avenue, but it takes a lot of personal research to find a provider or an organization near you that will do that.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, Phoebe will teach us about the fundamental misunderstanding at the heart of reduce, reuse, recycle. Don't go anywhere.
Introducing Notion Mail. It's the inbox that thinks like you, automated, personalized, and flexible to finally work the way you work. With AI that learns what matters to you, it can organize your inbox, label messages, draft replies, and even schedule meetings, no manual sorting required. I've been using Notion Mail for a little while now, and it's kind of amazing. With the AI organized inbox, you can tell Notion AI what types of emails are important to you, and it automatically will label them and sort them as they arrived. And to stay focused and distraction-free, you can split your inbox into custom views like topic or urgency or sender. And you can fly through all of those emails with snippets by using this one-click email template to quickly send whatever is repetitive for you, like intros or follow-ups or thank you notes. You can even include attachments and scheduling links. Get Notion Mail for free right now at notion.com/howto and try the inbox that thinks like you. That's all lowercase letters. Notion.com/howto to get Notion Mail for free right now. And when you use our link, you're supporting our show. Notion.com/howto. This episode is brought to you by Defender. Naturally capable and expedition ready, the Defender 110 is a vehicle built for the modern explorer. The Defender is a vehicle that looks tough because it is tough. With an exterior designed for optimum durability, the Defender has the endurance to take you further and tackle the extremes with confidence. Its 3D surround cameras with clear sight ground view let you see what's underneath the vehicle and anticipate obstacles and rough terrain, while its clear sight rear view provides an unobstructed view behind the car even when the back window is blocked. Plus, it's not only capable, it's comfortable. The Defender 110 has 5 seats with the option of 7 and features rich materials to ensure your journey is as luxurious as it is exciting. Purpose-built and courage-driven, the Defender is the vehicle that you need for your next great adventure. The Defender family also features the 2-door Defender 90, the Defender 110, and the Defender 130, which seats up to 8. Design your Defender 110 at LandRoverUSA.com. Visit LandRoverUSA.com to learn more about the Defender 110. Explore the Defender 110 at LandRoverUSA.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today? Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices, and that's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies, so you can save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states and situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Before we get back to the show, we're working on an upcoming episode about revenge, and we want to hear from you. Do you have an amazing story of the time you got revenge on someone who wronged you? What was the pettiest thing you've done? I cannot wait to hear these. What is your advice for getting revenge? Leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001 or email us, as always, at howto@slate.com, and we might feature your story on the show. Now, back to my conversation with Sujin and Phoebe. Up until this point, we've really been talking about reuse on the personal level, but it's worth noting that the US is far behind other countries in terms of our culture of reuse and our lack of policies. I wondered, Sujin, you spent some time in South Korea recently, if there was anything you noticed while you were there about repair and reuse culture?
Great question. I feel like everyone's just so much more capable in many ways. I'm like, what am I saying about American culture? Who knows? Up to interpretation.
Yeah.
I just feel like if something is wrong or coming apart in some way, there is always a desire to do something about it. And I am speaking to this specifically from the lens of my aunt and uncle, who I spent most of my time with there. So they're in their late 60s and late 70s. So I'd say a different generational thing. So don't really know if I can comment much on the younger generations of Korea and how they are going about this sort of thing, but definitely saw a lot more creativity and capability when it comes to approaching things that are broken.
We definitely have a lot to learn. You can't generalize about all Americans, but as a country, our policies around reuse, which is another thing that Reuse Alliance works on, are very far behind a lot of other countries that are both incentivizing reuse and holding companies responsible for the end of life of their products, and also requiring that consumers have more information so they can make better decisions. In Europe, consumer electronics have a repairability score that's like required to be posted along with the price.
Wow. Like physically posted next to the product?
Yeah, like how calories have to be. Like here we require calories on a... We're a long way from having transparency about all kinds of environmental issues. We're very behind on that in the U.S.
Yeah, we're a long way from having so many nice things. But this is yet one more of them.
There's a crazy statistic that the average American household has 161 unused items in it, which are, worth like $4,000 you could resell.
Seems small, honestly. 161 should be more.
Especially with children, not to always bring it back to children, but I just feel like kids, it's so natural that they want toys that they then outgrow, and then they're just still like in their rooms. Well,
if that's average, think about their households where they just have what they need. And then, I like to pretend I have an inventory, like everything that comes into your house how's it going to get out? And, that's a way to sort of, even though a thing is free or whatever, you're going to have to deal with it. And I think if we can all, consume a little bit less that way or have to be responsible for where it's going to end up. We would think more carefully about what came in, and that might lead to less overwhelm in general.
Man, Phoebe, when you first started this thought, I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to tell John, my husband, that because he buys too much stuff. But then you went to the free thing, and that's my Achilles heel is I love free stuff, and I've never seen a box on the side of the sidewalk that said free that I didn't linger at and think, maybe I could use this like broken teacup in a piece of art someday. So now we're both implicated. And I'm sad.
Well, no, because you're aware. That's the first step.
Okay, awareness, right? The first step.
Yeah, and I think, we live in a culture and a society that is totally, driven by that. So we should all have a lot of self-compassion.
Because I could imagine a lot of people listening to this and being like, oh my gosh, like Sujin and Phoebe are so aspirational to me, but like, I'm not there. So will you say a little bit more about that, the structural and cultural sort of influences that make it hard to be like Phoebe and Sujin?
Yeah, definitely. It started with the first Earth Day. They came up with this slogan, reduce, reuse, recycle. And that was meant to be in order of highest benefit to the Earth. And what happened was companies looked at that and they said, oh, only one of these lets us keep making things and selling them to the American public. So we invested a ton of money into recycling. Well, they invested a ton into marketing for recycling and into recycling infrastructure. And so that was seen as, the way to guilt-free consumption. But in reality, that is not solve our problems at the scale that we are now talking about consumption. And the kinds of things that we're consuming are not mostly recyclable because plastic obviously is one of the more challenging materials to recycle. So I think there was a very intentional system that tried to distract everybody from reuse and reduce and focus them on recycling so they could continue to buy products, to sell products.
My mind is blown by that. Like I knew there was controversy around how effective recycling was, but I've never heard it framed like that.
Just one thing as you were speaking, Phoebe, that came to mind for me is the fact that I'm able to take the time and the resources to try to reduce, reuse, repair the other re's that are not recycle, even though I also try recycling, so never mind on that. But in general, the fact that I'm able to do this comes from an immense place of privilege, and it is a class issue. It is a race issue. All of these different issues are very much a thing where I'm in a place where I'm able to do this, and I'm so grateful for that and have a lot of opportunity, and not everyone is in this place. So folks listening to this might think I'm not there. And it's like, okay, are there also other systems at play that are making you not there? And to put yourselves in a place where you're taking on hearing these types of views and maybe berating yourself for not doing it is also just, we are products of a really kind of messed up system that is bringing us to these points of self-discipline, air quotes being used here that no one can see. But yeah, it just, that's definitely something I wanted to say as a whole of this isn't a reality for everyone and it's not your fault. And it is something that corporations should be thinking about, and like the making things obsolete after a certain amount of time of use is taking advantage of us. And it's kind of like the whole thing where people are like, oh, like, you want to save the planet? Like, you need to go vegetarian. And it's like, actually, there are these huge organizations. Anyway, I'm about to like go on this huge tirade, so I'm going to pull it back. But you know what I mean.
Sujin's like, neoliberal capitalism. We're with you. Which is why I'm so glad you guys are also doing policy work, Phoebe. That's so important. And I am never going to forget reuse. What is the next one?
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Reduce is first.
Reduce is first.
Reduce, reuse, and then a tiny little recycle.
Yes, there's definitely a place for recycling at the end of life of something, when it can't be used anymore. we should recycle it. But it takes a lot more energy to recycle something than it does to reuse it.
We're bringing back the original mantra in our house. That's right, reduce, reuse, then recycle. It won't change broken systems as discussed, but it will help us stay aware of those systems so in need of redesign. My hope is that means we won't just be different kinds of consumers, but different kinds of citizens. Hopefully with less crap everywhere, funkier clothes, and maybe a few new skills. I want to extend a big thank you to Sujeen and Phoebe for talking reuse with me. If you're interested in tracking down a repair group in your area or are looking for additional resources, there will be a link to Reuse Alliance in our show notes. Do you have a can of worms that needs prying open? Send us a note at howto@slate.com or leave us a voicemail at 646-495-4001, and we might have you on the show. And if you like what you heard today, please give us a rating and a review and tell a friend. That helps us help more people. How To is produced by Rosemary Belson with Kevin Bendis. Joel Meyer is our supervising producer. Merritt Jacob is senior technical director and composed our theme music. Charles Duhigg created the show. Carvel Wallace is my co-host. I'm Courtney Martin. Thanks for listening.
Today's episode is sponsored by Smart Travel, a new podcast from NerdWallet. I'm Megan Coyle.
And I'm Sally French. We're NerdWallet travel writers who help you turn dream trips into trips you can actually afford.
Because let's be honest, dream trips are usually synonymous with spending money.
But my dream is to not spend much money at all.
That's where Smart Travel comes in. We break down the best ways to stretch your travel dollars, whether it's scoring an upgrade without selling your soul, decoding loyalty programs so you can actually get something out of them, or figuring out if that ultra discount airline ticket is too good to be true.
It usually is.
And while we're at it, we'll show you how to turn canceled flights into lounge dinners and free hotel stays. Spoiler, it involves a lot of patience and a little bit of research, but don't worry, we've already done the heavy lifting. Because being financially savvy doesn't mean you have to skip out on an adventure. It just means you're the genius who paid less for it.
Each week, we bring you travel news, expert insights, and even some of our own travel wins and mishaps. All so you can travel more while paying less. And hey, you'll even have some fun along the way. So if you're ready to make your travel budget work harder and smarter, follow Smart Travel on your favorite podcast app.
First up, smarter travel. See you soon.